And if you're old enough to specifically remember standing in line at Walmart at 4 a.m. just to get a $10 crockpot, welcome back to Wine and Chill. I'm Stephanie, and happy holidays to you and yours. Today, we're going to discuss the actual cost of the holidays. And speaking of cost, I didn't have much wine left, so we'll probably drink all of it. All right, a brief agenda for what we're going to discuss today. First and foremost, what happened to the Black Friday sales? We should actually bring back Black Friday. Actually, on second thought, never mind that. Secondly, how the hell are all of us paying for this? And a brief but necessary segue into how America loves labor but hates PTO for actual laborers. And then we'll end a little bit on some thoughts on actual happiness in the holidays. If you're old enough to remember the real Black Friday where you used to wake up sometimes 2, 3 o'clock in the morning just to stand in line at Walmart at 4 a.m., you are old enough to have a drink. And if you are old enough to specifically remember standing in line at Walmart at 4 a.m. just to get a $10 crockpot, or as we discussed on Patreon in the Discord, to get 3 crockpots for $9, you're old enough to have another drink. And it is me. I specifically remember at 19 years old, the sheer joy on my face from getting a $10 crockpot, which I will say I did make good use of that crockpot and it lasted many years, but how are they able to sell me a crockpot for $10? Now that I'm in my big age, it's giving a little bit of slave labor. It's giving they're not paying those workers. It's giving highly problematic. Black Friday is the definition of hyperconsumerism. Hyperconsumerism is defined as the consumption of goods beyond one's necessities and the associated significant pressure to consume those goods, exerted by social media as those goods shapes one's identity. And I'll push back a little bit on this definition because hyperconsumption and hyperconsumerism of said crockpot has existed long before social media. Honestly, I don't recall us posting on MySpace about standing in line at Black Friday. So why did we ever, before the age of social media, stand in line for so long and occasion horrendously actually turn into mobs and on occasion, even worse, actually run over people? It is to be noted that over the years in the United States, a few people have sadly lost their lives due to mob mentality in Black Friday lines. Yet Black Friday continued as a tradition for many years. So Black Friday was originally billed as a way to afford everything for your family because your family deserves the best, sincerely and truly, at a cheaper price. So of course, your auntie, your uncle, your family flew in and you would stand in the line and have a plan and a map. And yeah, my family was really into Black Friday. Never mobbed anyone, just to put that out there. So before we blame this hyperconsumerism and consumption solely on social media, let's take a step back into the history because it's always rooted in capitalism. And capitalism, for the most part, in modern day times, is always rooted in these corporations. Jolly old Saint Nick, as you see with his cherub face and jolly belly right here, is known as the patron saint of Christmas. Everyone's favorite holiday here in the United States, even though there are to be noted other holidays such as Eid, Kwanzaa, and Hanukkah. And I'm sure I'm missing a few. Christmas, however, carries a holiday torch with Saint Nick lighting that torch for everyone. However, Saint Nick wasn't always so jolly and round. He originally started as a Catholic patron saint, a very frail man who gave gifts to poor children throughout Europe. However, him being frail, him looking hungry, him looking a little destitute, that wasn't going to really work as a mascot for Christmas, for corporations, and specifically for Coca-Cola. In 1931, Coca-Cola transformed Saint Nick from his frail, saintly self to a more Fat Tuesday, Mardi Gras-esque, happy, jovial, rich, wealthy man who, in those days, a sign of wealth was that you could eat a lot of food. Hence the belly, the cherub smile, and all of those things. So Saint Nick is magically transformed into Santa Claus, a plump, jovial figure with a red nose who symbolizes fat sovereignty, the conscious consumption of Christmas culture. A long time ago, only kings were fat. Cultures that still maintain the traditional depiction of Saint Nick are not as vested in the consumer overdrive of Christmas in American culture. Ironically, skinny men don't sell things, but round men do. Santa honey was created to make money, which should be no surprise since the original formula for Coca-Cola did have cocaine in it. I mean, they really went a long way to sell people the pop. Back to Black Friday. On top of waiting in lines for multiple hours in the dark, in the sleet, snow, rain, or shine, in Miami, I do recall at a small age one time wading through a thunderstorm. It was a lot of fun to my 9-year-old self, to be honest, like an adventure in buying towels. Speaking of towels, why every Black Friday the aunties jumped on the towels as if all of their towels had magically shriveled up? I think it's important to know while we, the regular degular people, are not the root cause of hyperconsumerism and overconsumption, because honey, we honestly don't got it. There was a level of sport that I do think we added to it, fueled by maybe a tiny bit of greed. Who could have the most towels, the plushest towels? I mean, we all have that family member. And I will say, by the time I became a big age adult, I realized the necessity of getting the towels on sale. Ironically enough, coupons, which used to be all the rage back in the day, have been largely replaced during the digital era. However, the largest newspaper allegedly ever sold during Black Friday was the 5-pound, yes, you're hearing this correctly, 5-pound newspaper that largely included coupons from the Orlando Sentinel. 5 pounds of deals. Yeah, Florida's just a different place. Y'all already know this. And we can't have a conversation about holiday consumption without a dishonorable mention to fast fashion. Now, fast fashion has existed long before social media. So before you decide to go yell at the Gen Z children, it's not them. Honestly and truly, it was us. It was we, the millennials, the Gen Xers, who bought into the idea that middle-class people and working-class people somehow needed a new shirt every week. And before you go and decide to yell at the Gen Z children who are shopping from, I'm not going to say it. I feel like if you say it, then your phone hears it. And next thing you know, you're getting all types of ads for clothes that cost $3. Spoiler alert, you cannot buy clothing that costs $3 without participating in some form of slave labor. Just going to put that out there. And no, that fast fashion track was not started by the Gen Z kiddos. It's us. Are we the drama? And by we, the millennials, yes, it is we. Millennials and Forever 21 were, I would say, the originators of, yeah, of course we should go shopping every week. No one should be shopping every week. Forever 21, H&M, Zara, which Zara has attempted over the years to allegedly clean up its act, and I'm not sure if I'm believing it, to be honest. And before you decide to be guilted into throwing away all of your clothing items and accidentally contributing to the large piles of dumps that have now become our fast fashion, causing our earth to be a wasteland, I would recommend you might as well just wear them. You already purchased them. Wear them until they turn into rags, and then use those rags so you don't have to stand in line during Black Friday to get new dish rags. See? Everything can be repurposed. On the other hand, I highly would recommend watching the true cost and maybe not buying any fast fashion or slowly stopping it easily. With the caveat that it has been made known to me that some of these brands are very much size inclusive. So really, the issue is not we the purchaser. However, the issue is that these corporations are largely allowed to run amok. They are allowed to not pay people. They are allowed to use questionable fabrics and do all of these things. So pushing back on the corporation really solves everybody's problem, to be honest. And all of this lack of oversight on corporations is largely due to late stage capitalism. Which begs the question, how are any of us in this economy actually affording this? I'm including this picture of this article just because it made me laugh. Christmas consumerism, spending for the glory of God. And to know, I personally don't believe that Black Jesus wants you to go into debt for a gift for your aunt that she's likely going to re-gift to someone later on. Just saying. And the answer is largely and overwhelmingly if you are working class or middle class, which middle class in the United States is a fuzzy line. Everyone thinks they're middle class. The answer is credit cards and what used to be layaway, which actually was a good practice where you'd go into the store and say, listen, I don't have it right now. I'm going to give you installments, interest free. When I give you all the money, you'll give me the item, has been turned into Afterpay and Klarna, which in my opinion is a predatory practice of, okay, I'll make these installments, and if I miss a payment, they will charge you up the wazoo, which is why both Afterpay and Klarna are currently in major lawsuits. To no surprise of me. An interesting thing to know about the US economy specifically, and while this conversation is very much right now focused on the United States, this is a global issue. Hyperconsumerism is taking over the world. 70% of the United States economy is fueled by just US spending. Just regular people buying things are propping up the United States economy. So of course, it is in the best interest of all these companies to incentivize us to purchase things that we may not need and that we likely don't have the money for. One of the interesting things that we've seen in recent years, because the sales have really gone by the wayside, is that now all of a sudden you're driving past the same store that has been having a closing sale for the past 3 years. Babes, you might as well change the branding so I at least believe it. Because psychologically, people are more likely to buy things if they feel they're on sale. That 2-for-1 might just be the regular price of buying one, when you only needed one, but now you've bought two. Marketing is a very, very interesting game. We've been told over and over again in the United States that labor will allow you to buy things, and buying said things will bring you happiness. So the only way to get happy is to buy more and more and more. And if it happens to be cheap and it breaks, who cares? You can buy more $5, $10, $15 shirts. Which, to be noted, I don't think clothes cost that much unless you're buying from it. And honey, please. One recommendation, I highly recommend stop buying from them. We are quite literally propping up the US economy with each and every Amazon delivery. But before you completely blame yourself and buy into the pull yourself up by the bootstraps while you're wearing no shoes ideology, let's take a look and really place the blame where it belongs on these barely regulated corporations who have conditioned us to buy all these things while simultaneously denying any type of PTO, paid time off. In the United States, there is no federal paid time off. I repeat, in the United States, you are not entitled to federal paid time off. Throughout the EU and the UK, there is paid time off. You would be surprised to know that throughout the EU, the federally mandated paid time off is between 4 and 6 weeks. In the United States, people are barely given 1 week of paid time off. I will never forget the look on my dad's face when he was around 50 and for the first time in his adult working life, he finally was given PTO. It never occurred to me that all these years when he would save up his money and take us to Disney World, shout out to the Miami kids, it's only 4 hours to Disney, excellent, that he never got paid. And to compound the issue, not only do contract workers, part-time workers, as well as some full-time workers not have paid time off, there are entire sectors that have little to no sick days. Specifically, the railway workers in the United States recently were set to go on strike, to which our president, who claims to be a lover of unions, who claims to be a fighter of working class people and unions, decided to butt his business into it, which is very anti-union of him, allow Congress to vote on whether or not the railway workers should be forced into a collective bargaining agreement, and then separated that vote so that way Congress also voted on whether or not they should be allowed simply 7 sick days. Spoiler alert, Congress voted no. Congress voted that regular working class people aren't deserving of going to see the doctor. 7 sick days? Absolutely not. Imagine living in the richest country in the world that allegedly everyone can afford everything, but blue-collar workers can't even have 7 sick days. To quote Janice Torres, quoting Black Lives Matter, are the holidays the most wonderful time because they are the only time of the year that allows us to celebrate and respect being human, celebrate rest, and offer a break from structure that we also desperately want to escape from. I'll leave you with this. If these systems aren't working for us and these companies that we give our entire lives to aren't simply giving us 2-3 weeks back, I think it's well within our rights to push back a bit. Putting all of our hopes and desires into 2 weeks of the calendar year and only having maybe 3 or 4 days off often leaves many of us disillusioned and disappointed. What happens to people that unfortunately, your family's not the best? What happens to people that don't have friends or family, or they live in other countries, or they live far away? In his famous book, The 5 Love Languages, Gary Chapman lays out the foundation, which has been around for a while, of 5 different love languages. Those being words of affirmation, acts of service, gifts, quality time, and physical touch. And the premise is that different people score differently on how they like to give and receive love in platonic, romantic, and familiar relationships. And it occurred to me at a young age, I score 0 on gifts without even taking the test. I don't like gifts. However, unless that gift is food, I love, love, love food. The second highest score that I received was quality time, which tracks and makes sense. I love the holidays simply because I get to see my friends and family, laugh till my face hurts, and of course, reference back to the food. With the love languages, it's important to note that everyone is sometimes a mix of multiple of the 5, is solely one over the other 4, is different. So before you spend all of your hard-earned coins in this economy on gifts for somebody who may hate gifts, it might be beneficial to kind of ask them what they want. And honestly, when my dad watches this video, he probably would be very sad to hear that all these years later and all these gifts later, I only remember one gift from my entire childhood, and that's the Furby. Not because Furby was the gift of our generation, the it toy to have. It is because the thing would talk to itself and wake me up in the middle of the night. And honestly, it kind of gave me the vibe that it was slightly demonic. So I only remember the toy because I'm grossly afraid of said toy. So again, some people do enjoy the thrill of receiving a gift. I do have some friends that have scored very high in terms of their love languages gifts. I've noticed, because, my money is sometimes funny, that the small things that I give them, the token of my appreciation, the thing that's really heartfelt, is the things they seem to have valued. And as the oldest of 7, I can assure you that children under 3 simply like to unwrap things. They like mess. It brings them joy. You could literally wrap their vitamins in very brightly colored wrapping paper, and that would probably make their year. So on that note, while it's easier said than done, I try to remember during this time of the year, especially when my money is funny, that no one is going to remember what gift I bought them or didn't buy them. I'm not going to remember what I received. I'm going to remember the hugs, the joy, maybe the kiss under the mistletoe, the food, and the belly laughs. Definitely the belly laughs. So instead of arguing with each other, let's have some class solidarity and push back on these greedy companies and their insane marketing budgets that continuously try to convince us that we need to buy these things. And let's take this time, which the winter is already miserable, to enjoy the things that matter instead of trying to feed the unsatiable quench of more, and more. Because again, in this economy, most of us just ain't got it. All right, I'll catch you on the next video.